Hey everybody. So I had been promising that I would do some actual voiceovers here. This was not exactly the video that I expected to do it on, but I've been really enjoying Enigma's Cold War server here lately. Um, I hadn't been on in a while and decided to jump back on a few days ago in an F5 and had Splash 2, which was pretty cool. And then I remembered that one of my favorite planes in DCS is the Su25. Not the T, but the other one. And I believe this is the one, I get them confused. I believe this is the one that comes with the Flaming Cliffs 3 pack. But I really enjoy this little plane. I did not remember my bindings or anything, and I didn't have a ton of time to actually jump in the server, so I kind of just winged it. So you'll notice throughout the course of this little 20-minute kind of sortie here that I was screwing around with binds and clicking things and looking around and whatever to try to remember what did what. Because it's an FC3 low fidelity plane, there's not as many really key bindings that you need to remember. For the Su25, you really just have your gear, your flaps, your trim, obviously your stick and your throttle, weapon change, air to air or air to ground, your TDC slew, axis bound, as well as your TDC to press, and your laser target designator on and off. Obviously your pickle button or your trigger, which can be the same thing in the Su25 as far as I know. And then everything else is pretty much just preference, what you like to mess around with, what kind of weapons you employ or enjoy deploying, and so on and so forth. So anyway, another interesting thing about this is I typically fly in VR. And I have a RTX 4090 graphics card, and I have a 13900K CPU. So the rig can definitely handle DCS VR pretty well. Still not optimized, still probably a lot of times not nearly as smooth as I would hope, but I've gotten it down to where it's locked into a pretty just flat max settings 45 FPS. The reason that I don't go higher is the next point, which would be my headset. So I have a Quest 3, which is, don't get me wrong, a great headset, but it is not a Pimax Crystal. It is not an Aero. It is a really good mid-level headset with some tweaking and some tuning. But the lack of an actual display port, or a lack of a direct display port plug-in, means you get some compression. You don't. It's just not quite as smooth or as fast as far as getting the images into your headset. So typically I will do that, but today I wanted to try something. So there is a new software called iWare Beam that works with the free utility OpenTrack. So you can get head tracking as well as eye tracking for those smaller adjustments. For, I want to say it was $30 for the iWare Beam. It works with whatever webcam you have. And I'd been messing around with it, and honestly, I am super impressed. It even makes your head tracking better over just standard OpenTrack, which I'm sure a lot of people use. And I'd wanted to try eye tracking on a 2D monitor for a while, just because the feel of getting all of the beautiful visuals that DCS has, especially when you have a computer that can handle it, along with more precision, without so many glitchy, kind of head tracking issues that one might have trying to use a free software. Because honestly, I've spent so much money on my computer, and even on the Quest 3, like, I do not want to dump more into head tracking peripherals, I guess. I just don't want to do it. And some would say, well, like, you spent this much on your computer already and you're going to cheap out on this. And yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. But the patience has paid off. And so this particular little session here is just using OpenTrack and I believe it's called eyewear Beam eyewear, but it combines head tracking and eye tracking together. And I've tuned the settings enough that I feel like nailed it pretty well. I would honestly probably fly in 2D more than VR, just because of the Quest 3 headset more often, if I didn't have such a dang hard time spotting air-to-air targets. DCS is beautiful, and especially running it at a higher resolution with smooth frames, it's really difficult to pick up air-to-air targets if you're in a turn fight with them. Whereas in VR, because of the spotting dots, like them or hate them, they do help you with situational awareness and knowing where things are. So air to ground, I don't have as much difficulty. Air to air, I have one heck of a time. So anyway, all that being said, this is this particular sortie after kind of taking off here, and this is the 1970s version of Enigma's Cold War. So you do have the laser guided rockets on your Su25, and you also have a couple of air-to-air missiles that you can run on a Su25, as well as the A-10A on the blue side. So you have, I enjoy this. I've also gotten to a place where I can enjoy the 60s kind of campaign as well. But for this particular aircraft, I really enjoy putting some big laser guided rockets on, and then some smaller, just Zuni type rockets, and just letting them rip. Today I knew specifically that I only needed 5 points, 5 credits to be able to get into an F-14 or a MiG-29. Like I said, it'd been a while since I've been on here, and I jumped on the other day and ended up getting a couple of air-to-air kills in an F5, and got a chunk of those points. And so the way that I like to fly air-to-ground, especially when I'm just kind of points hunting, is get on the server, pick a target that's been marked, preferably that has several targets in it, and load up specifically to go after that target, have a clear plan of how I'm going to get there, what I'm going to shoot at, and just let everything fly at whatever's over there, and then turn around and run as fast as I can back to the cover of a friendly airbase, land, redeem points, got them, now they're banked, and we're good to go. So in this, it looked like there had been some, it's relatively early in the morning, before 10 o'clock Eastern time in the US. Not a ton of people on the server. A good time to get out and fly more or less uninhibited to the front line in something like a Su-25, and light some stuff up and get back without getting blasted out of the sky by any number of bigger, faster, definitely faster, maybe not bigger aircraft. So I found some targets on Blue Force front line. I'm still not that great at this server, only because I'm used to more modern jets. So I know that I'm going in with some potential targets still there. I don't know if they're still there or not. And I probably need to study up more to make sure that I understand what I'm looking at as far as like a 1970s Blue 4 and Red 4 kind of surface to air defense setup. But what I did know was the direction that they were, what I wanted to bring with me to shoot them, and then began the journey there, which can take a little while when 60, 70, 80 miles in something that begins to shudder violently, like it's jacked up on Adderall and caffeine, when you get over 350 knots, something like that. So it took me a little while to get here. Like I said, played around with key bindings on the way, and also just looked around because it's so pretty. It was a pretty time of day on the server. You'll notice I keep jumping back and forth to the map, because essentially I am just flying VFR, more or less. I am just looking at mountain ranges and valleys and hills and changing the F10 map to show altitude, deviations, things like that, just so I know where to start looking. And then I pretty much kind of know that the targets are going to be over this little mountain range, foothills, whatever you want to call them. Keeping an eye on the EWR callouts, which I think is a great feature of Enigma server. I know a lot of servers have copied that as of late. But just trying to make sure I stay on a decent heading so I can kind of intercept all of these targets that are right down Blue Force front line. So I believe there are a couple of tanks down here. I think there might be some, from when I was actually looking, there's likely some kind of shelters, some barracks, more or less. And so here I start to see them off in the distance. That's another useful keybind to have, especially if you're playing on a flat screen monitor, is the slow zoom in and out axis, because you can not only reset kind of your point of view, your POV, but you can really zoom in on things that would be very difficult to see with the high resolution 2D display. So I start to see these things come in to view, and I realize, all right, this is kind of my patch of targets. I always do a double check of the F10 map before I fully commit to a target, because of it being the front lines, you always are you have friendly units danger close. They're going to be right back and forth over the line. So I double checked to make sure that I was looking at what I thought I was looking at, and I was well into Blue 4's hexagon here on Enigma. And another thing I didn't mention is I don't remember ranges of these weapons. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and lock something up a good distance out, get the laser on it, and let one of these rockets go, and just see if it can get there. I do not think that one got there. I don't think I ever saw that impact anywhere. So that was clearly too far. And here is an issue because you see the crosshairs jump back to the center of the HUD. Changing weapons or turning the laser on and off really, it can throw off your aim a little bit. So it kind of screwed me up there, and I had to reset, and then actually ended up getting a couple of these laser guided missiles on target here. I believe this is a barracks. Again, I'm not good at identifying these things. I know that it was marked as a target and it's in Blue Force side. So that's what I was doing. It looked big. So I thought, hey, I'm going to just unload these rockets in here. And as I got closer, just kind of let them go. I think I ended up getting a couple of kills out of this, but it might have just been infantry. But it looked cool. And I was happy that I was actually able to get on target. A tip there with those rockets too is don't always use your slew. You essentially will uncage the laser or the seeker head of the missile when you turn your laser on. But you can turn your laser on and manipulate the aircraft, which actually makes it, I think, a bit easier just to get nose on and make the finer adjustments with the actual TDC. So that's a tip. I also knew that there were other targets out here, and this is where I was double checking to make sure I was still well within where I wanted to be. So then I'm now circling around to see if I can find anything. A lot of times you'll see targets because they start shooting at you, and that's exactly what happened here. I was turning, looking at this other barracks-looking structure, and then you'll see the tracer fire come up here in just a second. And there we go. There's the tracer fire. So I realized, all right, there's guys right here. I'm going to put just these Zuni rockets, and just unloaded everything I had, and actually was super accurate there, which was cool. Needless to say, that tracer fire stopped very quickly. So I just unloaded in a period of about a minute and a half 4 large warhead laser-guided air-to-ground missiles, as well as 2 full canisters of 20 unguided rockets. So that was the plan. Get in, blow some stuff up, get out, and I immediately turned around. If I was smart, and I believe that I did this, put it back in air-to-air mode, so I do have some capability to defend myself as I make this trek back. And this is the hard part, is finding your heading and just flying to get back to base. Knowing that this is not the easiest aircraft in the world to land. As you'll see as we get to the end up here, I tend to forget how easily you lose airspeed when you make any type of maneuver, and how under a certain speed it just wants to fall out of the sky. So I begin to get kind of my bearings here, to get back to friendly base here. I believe it was Abu al-Dahar. Am I correct? I might be wrong. But essentially flying as quickly as this plane can fly, again without shaking violently, back to the base. And just wanted to put the thing back down on the ground. Another tip is, when you are ingressing or egressing, and you know that your primary objective, what you wanted to do, is done, and the only thing really, because we're working on the front lines, once I turn around, I'm back in friendly territory. The only thing that's going to shoot at you out here is going to be an opposition aircraft. So you want to go ahead and just put yourself back in your air-to-air mode if you're in something like a Su25, or go ahead and fence in on the air-to-air side if you're in, another aircraft that has, that is more full fidelity. Whatever you want to do to get yourself back into a position that if you get jumped somehow, because the EWR does not always pick up on everything, go ahead and make sure that you are fenced in and ready to fight if you need to. Not saying it's going to help you a whole lot. The Su-25, similar to the A-10, is not the easiest or the best, most optimal aircraft to dogfight in or get into an air-to-air engagement with. But because of their slow speeds and their ability to maintain kind of a high angle of attack, you can turn inside someone for a minute. So I've gotten some kills in these air-to-air by simply being so slow that whoever I'm engaged with cannot stay behind me. They can't stay on your 6, and you can kind of throw them out in front. They overshoot, not realizing how slow you are, and even a Su-25 or an A-10 or something that's more ground focused can catch a faster aircraft off guard. You don't want to do it often. That's not going to be your bread and butter, but it does work from time to time. Just thinking through any other key bindings that you might want to have. Obviously, your chaff and flare. On this particular sortie, I went with all flare, knowing that most of the things you're going to see are going to be IR guided weapons coming at you. So flare is going to be more valuable, in my opinion, and some may argue with me, than chaff. So I went with all flares here. So make sure you have your chaff flare dispense bound. And the only other thing that I can really think of is going to be your navigation. So you have your air-to-air and your air-to-ground modes, and you might want to have your nav mode bound. I do, but I don't ever fly to waypoints necessarily in multiplayer servers in an FC3 plane like this. I'm especially a server that allows F10 map markers. I just use the ruler tool on the F10 map and fly that way. I don't really worry about the waypoints necessarily. And then the other useful item is to have your your HUD screen, the little reflector glass up there in front of you, it will, move up and down. So depending on what kind of angle you're taking at a particular target, you may lose your crosshair, and you don't want to do that. So you can manipulate that based on kind of the nose angle of the plane to keep that crosshair visible in that reflector glass, because when it gets outside of it, it goes away. So those are some things to keep in mind. You can also bind a key to request a bogey dope from your AWACS. That's also nice, since you're going to be doing that a lot in this plane. I didn't do it so much during this sortie only because there weren't a ton of players out there, and most everything stayed outside of 50-ish miles from me throughout the course of this flight. Always keep your head on a swivel as well, just to make sure there's nothing out there that the EWR has not picked up. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and take it into landing here, and then that'll be that. And as you can see here, not exactly the smoothest landing in the entire world. I'm pretty sure I popped something, broke something. The gear on this Su25 is not the best. Regardless, I got down. That's all I cared about. It was shaking violently on the ground, much like it does when you get too fast in the air. But I did land. I believe I was too slow. Angle of attack was too. The glide slope was too steep, and I think I just slapped it down like you would a Hornet on a carrier deck, and not like you would a Su25 Frogfoot on a runway. So anyway, successful nonetheless. Got the points I needed. I'm probably going to do the next video in a MiG-29 or an F-14, and may give that one a go in VR. And maybe you guys can let me know which one you enjoy more. But if you like this, please like the video, subscribe. I'll be doing a lot of tutorials and just multiplayer sorties and commentary and so on and so forth. So thank you guys so much, and we will talk hopefully soon.